Right then, everybody, we're now live. I usually have this really funky lead which extends my headphones, and it's kept here by the stand and the tripod and everything. Can I find it? Can I hell? So I'm working on the microphone either on the webcam or on the laptop. Hopefully, you can hear us, and hopefully, I'm nice and clear and clean for you. But yes, welcome along. I am showing up on the screen at the moment my fantastic Patreon supporters. I want to show them due respect each and every time. We'll update these obviously when the payments come out the first week of the month. But this is our current selection of people who have been incredibly generous, allowing us to keep doing what we do by putting something into the coffers and allowing us to pay for licenses and hosting and Flickr accounts and all sorts of fun and games. But those are the people that are contributing, and I really do appreciate it. As always, if you head to patreon.com/Englishman SDCC, I'm going to do my best to do a live stream at the end of today's show as well, because I do want to get into some bits and pieces, which has come up in conversation online over the last couple of days. So we'll get into that. Also, I just wanted to very quickly address the things that happened last week, because we didn't have a show last week due to some guests dropping out. Just to let people know, it wasn't a case of any kind of disagreements or any kind of issues. With one guest, it was a case of them suddenly realizing it was a video live stream, and understandably, they got a little bit concerned, a little bit anxious, and it's only one person that is actually running pretty much that entire show. It was to do with a show that's happening next week, which is True Believers. That's Stuart. He understandably got a little bit anxious, so he decided to drop out. And then the second guest that we had lined up had the lurgy, which is also the case of another guest that we had lined up for today as well. I was going to speak to Joel about getting him on a little bit further down the line, but as it happens, Joel's available today. This person that we were going to be speaking to has got a bit of a sniffle. It's all rolling around. Everyone's not feeling too well. So as you can understand, it's a case of no one wants to come on and be a little bit sniffly on the air. So I appreciate that. But listen, thank you very much indeed for bearing with us last week. Really do appreciate it. And we'll do our best to continue to bring a show on a regular basis. We are still lining up guests. Yes, Bill Sienkiewicz is turned around and said that he's up for joining us. And I'm doing my best to get some other people on. I really want to speak to Gary Erskine. However, I got in contact with him this week, and he's on holiday. So he certainly couldn't talk to us, but hopefully we're going to get him on in the next couple of weeks. The great thing about Gary is he's a regular mainstay at pretty much most comic conventions around the globe. Sorry, certainly in the UK, but around the globe as well. Good guy, knows the way to run or at least take part and participate in a comic convention. Very good guy indeed. So we'll definitely do our best to get him on at some point in the near future. Right. For some strange reason, we do have the forehead of Joel Meadows. We need to kind of angle his camera so you get him full. There we go. Get him full face, and we'll get him on. But I definitely want to get into talk about all sorts of stuff and nonsense. We definitely want to get into some WonderCon news at the back end of the show, so stick around for that. And also anything else that you want us to cover very quickly, do jump in on the chat box. We'll do our best to search for it and get something on the screen to discuss anything that you want to get into. Because this is Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name is Len Sultana. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. No cup of tea as such for me, but I do have my 2-pint of cordial, because I'm also kind of on the downswing of my own lurgy, as it were. So I'm just hydrating as much as I possibly can, if you can bear with us. Thankfully, it's nothing too serious. I do want to say something about the issues that's currently happening in Asia and Japan. It's not great. It's not the situation anyone wants. It's a very serious situation. I do want to actually cover it as part of the show, because there are obviously a number of very big and important comic conventions and pop culture events that take place in that part of the world. How this is going to affect those, considering that they are shutting down theme parks, they're shutting down libraries, they're shutting down areas of people joining in a mass community. So that's what I do want to talk about, and I do want to get into that, but hopefully we'll have something more about that maybe next week or the week after. I'd love to get possibly not Little Red Ruby, Red Dot Diva. I'd like to get Red Dot Diva on back on, just possibly to talk about that, because it is a big market for comic conventions, and this is a very serious situation. The free flow of people around the globe to do this, it's not good. So yeah, we're going to get into that. Right. However, we do also have ourselves a special guest for today. So we have ourselves Mr. Joel Meadows joining us. Hello there, Joel. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm very well, Alan. How are you doing?
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Fine, thank you. We didn't have audio there for a second, but you've got us. We've got you. We can hear you. First and foremost, I think it's best if everyone kind of like knows who you are. If you haven't seen the stream before, if Joel's a bit of a stranger to you, Joel, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I juggle a lot of things. I'm one of the co-producers of the Portsmouth Comic Con, which happens every May, and there's a third show happening this coming May. I'm also editor-in-chief of Tripwire magazine, which is a website, but we're about to head back into print from this May.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's pretty much. There's a few other things, but that's the main things.
There is more. There's more that you do. I mean, you certainly you get around. You are definitely a mainstay of the comics landscape here in the UK. You've got the connections with people. You know as many bodies as anybody in the industry,
yes.
which I suspect is one of the main reasons why you got involved in Portsmouth Comic Con in the first place. Because of your connections, you felt that you had the ability to put on a show and get the right connections in. Was that the main drive, or what was the main impetus of kind of getting involved in starting up a Comic-Con, which is not exactly a sane thing to do. It's a tough thing to get into.
It is. We were approached by Andy Grace, who runs the Guildhall, the venue that the show takes place in, back in 2017, and they'd never done a comic show before, and they wanted to put on one, and they knew that we knew a lot of people in the industry, and we just got chatting, and they picked a date, and it sort of steamrolled us from there, really.
Okay. I mean, when they kind of approached you, what was your first thoughts when it came to putting this on? Was it a case of you feeling that you could put your stamp on the show, or was it a case of let's see if we can work together to put on a show which would benefit the comics community? Because I can imagine that was a main draw for you to putting on a show.
Well, I guess it's a bit of both. I mean, obviously, we wanted to give something back to comics because we've covered comics for so many years. I mean, we wanted to give something back. We also wanted to have, as you say, to have something that reflects Tripwire and the work that we've done over the years relating to comics and comic-related material. So it was kind of a bit of both, really.
Fair enough. And it's not just yourself. There's also a whole team of people. Because I mean, I think that's something that's when people talk about comic conventions, there are one or two shows which are hinged around one or two personalities. Wales with Jamie, sorry, and the various shows. You kind of have that one personality involved. But with Portsmouth Comic Con, there's kind of like a whole collective of you. Who's involved in actually putting the show on?
Well, I mean, my Tripwire partner, Andy Coleman, is involved with the programming and the stuff that we put together from our side. But there's quite a big team. There's Kelly, who does the marketing and publicity, who worked full time at the Guildhall. There's Nick, who's involved with the actual floor planning, and then there's Kurt, who deals with the guests and helps to liaise with the different guests. And there's a couple other people as well. So there's about 4 or 5 other people. So there's a team of about 6 or 7, to be honest, that we use for the show. So it is a big team. It's impossible to put a show together on your own.
Absolutely. I mean, I think also the great thing about Portsmouth Comic Con, like you say, you came in with that first show and you weren't too sure what to expect, I can imagine.
No.
But it was such a huge success from the get-go, which is such a rare thing in Comic Con. It is a case of something to grow and develop. I mean, what's your memories of that first show, of kind of the anxious moments to put that on?
it was a bit of a blur, and it was. I remember the Friday night that I didn't sleep very well because it was the day before the first day of the first show. And I was quite anxious, but once we got Saturday out the way, I think that was a definite big load off my mind, to be honest. But it did feel quite weird. It was quite stressful in the run up, in the sort of few months running up to the first show. But this is our third one now, so I mean, we're still. Let's just make sure we get everything right. But I'd like to think we're a little bit more confident in terms of what we do now compared to what we did for the first year.
What would you say is the biggest thing that you learned on that first show? Because I can imagine that first show, you felt that you had an idea of how to put on a show and to put the right guests in the right place and to kind of give it the right flavour for what Portsmouth Comic Con then became. But then it obviously evolves, it becomes something, and it almost becomes its own animal. What would you say is the thing you learned the most out of that first show?
I guess you have to be adaptable to things. If things don't go to plan over the course of the weekend for whatever reason, sometimes external reasons, for whatever reason, you have to be adaptable and go, okay, that didn't work. We have to think about why it didn't work and address that for future years. So I think that's probably the main thing from the first year.
And how did that then evolve for the subsequent years, for year 2, and now we've got coming up year 3? Is it something that has allowed it easier for you to get guests for the show, that initial success, or is it something where everyone's just gone, well, okay, they're still in year 1, it may be a fluke, let's just see what happens? How has the reception been to Portsmouth Comic Con as a new player, certainly on that south coast?
It's been very positive. Mostly it's been very easy to get decent guests. I mean, with year 2, we had Liam Sharp, we had Roy Thomas, we had Steve Englehart, we had Tom Coker, Tommy Edwards, and for year 3, we've got a really strong lineup again. So I think that because it's the third year that we've done it, I think it has helped, and we are looking a little bit more credible, as you say, as a player for comic conventions in the South Coast. We're more established. This will be the third year that we've done it. So yeah, I'd like to think we're getting a bit more industry support from people, perhaps, than we would have done the first year, because I can understand that people wanted to wait and see how it went, which I would have done the same, I think. So
sure. When it comes to feedback for Portsmouth Comic Con, I'm really curious to learn about how people have responded to it, because obviously there's for people on the street, the normals,
yes.
people who you rattled off a whole bunch of names there, people who may not know who those people are. You can certainly put in the brackets what they've worked on, and that's what sparks their interest and attention. But the vast majority of people that are walking through the door of a comic convention are drawn by the cosplayers, the excitement of having a Comic Con in their town. But you are putting on something which are putting on in the guest list some really kind of like strong comics names. How do you kind of balance that? How, and certainly for yourself, how do you kind of rectify in your own head the fact that you are putting on these great guests, which that if you know comics, they are great guests, but for the average person, they're not exactly going to know who they are.
Well, I guess, as you say, it is about finding the balance, and it's trying to sell the general public about these people. For the second year, we had Will Simpson, who worked on Game of Thrones, but if you didn't say he'd worked on Game of Thrones, no one would know who he was. And for this coming year, we've got Adam Hughes, who's obviously a big draw, and we can say to the general public that this man did a very long run of Wonder Woman covers for DC, and he's one of the best artists in terms of portraying sort of the female form in terms of superheroes. You've had Catwoman. I mean, look at his CV; it's phenomenal. So I guess it's about trying to sell these creators to the general public and say, look, you don't know who these people are, but you would have seen the films that are based on the characters that they've worked on, and that's how you really have to couch it.
Sure. I mean, we've got a couple of questions coming in on the chat already.
Cool.
Thank you very much indeed to everybody who's gotten any questions for Joel. If you do, jump in on either Facebook, Periscope, Twitter. Yeah, any questions you want to jump in, by all means. Andrew English, who is I keep bumping into at Portsmouth. He's a member of the UK attendees group for San Diego Comic Con, top bloke, and he is going to Portsmouth. He is someone who goes down to that south coast and goes to those shows. But he is asking the outside did expand last year, and it was a case of putting a bigger tent out for the people that were exhibiting outside, and also that outside stage as well.
Yes.
What can we expect for Portsmouth Comic Con this year? Is it going to be a similar layout, or have you thought of any way to change what's going to be happening outside?
It's going to be similar. There will be an outdoor tent that will have people set up in it, and there will be panels happening outside. I mean, one thing we are doing is we're not using the council chamber for a number of different reasons for panels. So we're going to be relying more on the outside space for panels, as well as there's a room on the 3rd floor. There's a panel room that we'll be using. So we are shifting the spaces around a little bit, but the outdoor tent will still be there, and there'll still be people set up in the outdoor tent. I think we've got a couple of guests, I believe, from the outside. So it's going to be similar but not identical in terms of the way the outside space works. It'll be the concessions again. You have your burgers and your pizza and and your baguettes and things. And they do very well with the food concessions. And I think they have a really good range. I think they're quite reasonable as well. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be very similar.
I'm curious to see how the actual layout is. You have the stage kind of like offset to the looking down the stairs to the right hand side, which was great for people to sit on the stairs and kind of like watch the content on the stage. But it is such an iconic building, the Portsmouth Comic Con, with that huge staircase leading up to the front
and
entrance.
The 2 towers on each side. It's very distinctive.
It's quite an iconic building, so it is a case of just keeping that a little bit clear so you can get that wonderful panoramic shot on there. Absolutely. Now, Solicitor Smeg has got a couple of questions, and I think we could have really gone into a little bit more of this the first time when we introduced you, because what you actually do with Portsmouth Comic Con, there's a whole bunch of hats that you wear, and it stretches.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So the question is, what are your duties with the con? That's a big question because you do so much.
It is a question. Yes, I will try and address that. So we pick guests for the show each year. We also promote it through to the trade. So it's places like Down the Tubes and Bleeding Cool very kindly have supported the show over the last 2 or 3 years. We make people aware as we do that. We also promote it on Tripwire as well. So if there's a guest announcement, we like to promote it on our own website as well. And we do liaise a little bit with the guests. I mean, as I said, Kurt, who runs the venue, he doesn't run the venue, but he works with the guests at the show, part of the venue. He's in charge of making sure that people don't miss their flights and they get their hotels booked. But we give them an initial list and we keep them up to date with what's coming in terms of new guests and things. And obviously, we work out the panels as well. So as well as getting the guests in, we also program to work out which panels are happening at the show over the 2 days, which is quite tricky because we've got a lot of guests. We're trying to make sure that everyone gets their slice of the show, if you like, guest.
Sure. And I think the other question, before I dive into the guests, because it is, like I say, we kind of touched on that, a very strong guest list for this year. What are some hidden things that need to be done to put on a con that you see some newer cons failing at? I mean, I think that also kind of relates to things that you learned about putting on a con and those surprises that perhaps you didn't expect. What were those kind of behind the scenes things that you didn't necessarily think, right, okay, we've got to do that?
Well, I guess the signage is important, and the Guildhall are fantastic at that, because as soon as you get into Portsmouth, you get into the train station, there is signage telling people where the show is. And I think a show can stand or fall on decent signage. So that people have to know the thing is happening. There's no point putting on the best show in the world if no one knows it's happening. So signage is key. And the other one, I'm going to couch this a little bit more diplomatically, but I think you have to be a little bit patient with certain people you have to deal with. The people, people are different, and some people have different kind of concerns and different expectations. And you have to be a little bit patient, and you have to be a little bit flexible dealing with certain people. But that's, people are different. So I think that's one thing that people might not be aware of if they haven't put a show on themselves. And we weren't aware of that prior to putting the first year on.
Sure. I mean, another thing that I wanted to bring up, like I said, we're talking about the guests as well.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen this week that Thought Bubble have put their guest list out for, or their initial run of guest lists.
Yes, I saw that.
For November, which is some way away. We're talking a good 9-10 months worth of lead time. But a certain number of people would think, you've got the guests signed up, just announce them. what's the kind of mechanics of announcing the guests? Certainly for like Portsmouth Comic Con, is it a case of just holding off and just seeing if that is absolutely nailed down in stone, or is it a case of let's just announce it? If they cancel, they cancel. What's the kind of mechanics of that?
We do try and announce stuff throughout the year because we want to have things to let people know that are happening. As you say, some people do drop out, due to either health or schedule clash. But we like to offer people like a drip feed of guests. I mean, we're just about to announce a couple of guests, I think this Tuesday, and one quite big American guest that we'll be announcing. But we like to do it gradually. You know who it is. I think I told you. Who it is. He hasn't been over here in about 30 years, so he's quite a nice guest to have. But we like to do it gradually over the course. Once the next year's show is firmed up, we do like to do it over the course of a few months. And I mean, Thought will have a phenomenal lineup, and we're hoping to get down there again. I haven't been down since 2017. We're planning to come up in November because I want to check them out and have got a very good lineup. But I guess there's an argument for both, but we like to do it in stages just to kind of keep people coming back to the site and keep offering something new in terms of information on the show. So that's the main reason. But as you say, people can drop out, and obviously these things can happen. But
well, I mean, I think the other thing. Sure. I mean, I think the other thing as well that I wanted to kind of talk about is the guests for this year, because
yes,
the guest has just grown. Let's talk about the ones that you have got announced for so far. I mean, what would you say? I mean, headliners for yourself and anyone that you'd like to shine a spotlight on.
Well, I guess Adam Hughes obviously is an obvious one because he's a huge name and he's very talented. He's got a phenomenal career. He's a very impressive guest. I think we've announced David Michelini already. I hope we have anyway. If we haven't, we just have now. Who was the co-creator of Venom. So we've got him. We've got a lot of very strong British talent again. I think we've got Sean Phillips, Rob Williams coming back. We've got June Brigman, who co-created Power Pack with Louise Simons, who's not been over here in a long time. So again, we wanted to have a good mix. I think we've got Marguerite Sauvage as well. And we've got some other very strong guests. So we wanted to mix it up. We wanted to have a good, strong list of people like we've had the last 2 years.
Sure. I mean, we've got the website up there on the screen at the moment, so people can see what we're talking about. I mean, it really is such an amazing lineup. We also have that the comment from Andrew earlier that the early bird tickets have sold out, which is an incredible achievement. So congratulations to you on that. What I've also been very impressed with is that embracing of other disciplines and other interests. So you do have the VR section, you do have steampunk, you've done great sections when it comes to other areas like makeup and movie costuming, which has been very impressive. Is that something that you've gotten involved with, or is that more the other members of the team that's been helping put that together?
It's actually a mix. I mean, Will Simpson, who I mentioned before, who was the storyboard guy for Game of Thrones, that was we're the ones that put that together. And Gary Pollard, who I think is coming back, who worked on Doctor Who, that was my initial contact. But also, there's another guest actually who I can't mention, but he's a very cool guy. He's got a very impressive TV and film CV, who was organised. It was organised through one of the members of the team. We had nothing to do with it. We didn't know him, but he's a phenomenal guest. And once people hear he is, they're going to be pretty impressed. But I think, the team do throw in a lot of ideas and a lot of inputs, and they bring in a lot of TV and film people. And also, as you say, the other stuff, like cosplay and behind the scenes makeup and prosthetics. And because the thing is, it's not just about comics. A comic show, it's important to reflect the other aspects of the stuff that crosses over into comics. So TV and film and gaming as well. So I think that's very, very important to reflect that in a show in 2020.
Sure. I mean, we've also got a question from Sir Lister Smeg. Do you have a guest that you haven't gotten before that is a dream get for you?
Oh well, there's plenty. I mean, there's quite a lot. I mean, we're trying to get Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, who's I'm not sure he's ever been over here actually, and that would be amazing. We have been working on trying to get Frank Miller, who was over for MCM, but we're hoping at some point. So there's a very long list of guests that we're still working on. But we do the show 1 year at a time, and we make sure it's as strong as it can be. For that 1 year, obviously got the Etheringtons back, and they're phenomenal as British guests. They're something else. I mean, they're fabulous guests. They're really interactive and they're great. They do panels for kids, and they're something else really. If kids want to really get engaged with comics, then to go to an Etherington Brothers panel is phenomenal. And they're great at hosting panels and getting kids excited about comics, which is what we all want. We want kids to to be as excited as we are. And I think the Etherington Brothers managed to really convey that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Something that I've been very much an advocate for at comic conventions is something that's come out of the conversation over the last couple of years, which is a diverse series of voices on representation, not only voices of color, but also voices, female voices, and other voices out there of creativity.
Yes.
It's great to see that the names that you've got front and center on the site. I mean, Katie Schnenkel, you've got Janet K. Lee as well, and a big get for me, who I'm a huge fan of, which is Margaret Savage. I mean, how difficult is that as somebody who has gone to approach people at comic conventions? How difficult is it to get that broad range of voices, considering that, if you are incredibly honest, those voices are still a minority in this industry? You do want to try and represent, but you have to kind of find those voices. How difficult or how easy is that to do?
It is quite tricky, and it's just because, to be honest, a lot of the time it's just trying to pin people down for their different schedules and say to them, look, this show's happening this time. We've been trying to get JOEL Jones the last couple of years. Unfortunately, it clashes. She's starting work on a big project, which she hasn't told me what it is, but she's working on a big DC project. So, we'd love to have, that's the thing it's tricky, because some creators, we'd love to have more, creators from a particular sort of area, or, as you say, a female creator or someone from the LGBT space, but it really depends on their schedule, of course. It always boils down to that. And, it is a challenge, but, we do the best that we can. It is tricky for every show because, as I said, it depends on people's schedule and work schedule. Sometimes need to be home, to work on projects or clash with other shows, so it is a balancing act all the time, really.
Sure.
So yeah, but Margaret's
and I think sorry, you were saying?
No, I said obviously, people like Margaret Sauvage. We have got some very strong creators from, not just male creators, but a lot of strong female creators at this year's show who are very talented, who've got an amazing CV. And they come from the indie side and they come from the mainstream. I mean, June Brigman, she worked on Power Pack, and they're bringing that back, and it's very cool because she's not been over here I'm not sure she's ever been over here, but if it has, it's been a hell of a long time. So it's great to have somebody like her and Margaret Sauvage, who again has got a very different CV.
Sure.
So yeah, it's So I mean, it's a challenge.
And no, sure. I mean, another thing as well, which I'm always excited about when it comes to Portsmouth, is the Tripwire Awards, which you launched at the show 2 years ago. No, last year. Sorry, that was the first year for putting that on. I mean, that's a bold thing to do, to actually put something like that together. What drove you to actually do that? And also kind of what does it take to actually put on an award show? Because I can imagine there's a little bit of politics in the background as well to actually put on a show, on an awards thing in 2020.
A little bit. I mean, I wanted to do it because I wanted, to put something back into comics, because I thought, that we've done Tripwire for a long time, and I thought it'd be quite nice to have something that celebrates the mix of talent. And I mean, it's predominantly UK and US because that's what we cover, and I think that's what the show, it's what the main focus of Portsmouth is, and also of Tripwire mostly. So we just wanted something like that, and it is a lot of work. I mean, obviously you're involved with, with the picking of the different nominations, and it is tricky, and you can't please everyone, and it is, you know, but we're hoping there's a good spread. We've got some good people this year, again in the nominations and we've increased the number of categories as well. Having listened to a couple of indie guys, we have increased the number. We didn't want to have tons, but we've increased it's from 12 to 15 for this year to try and give people a slightly broader spread for the categories.
Sure. I mean, I'm just putting up the sheet now, just so people can see it. I mean, if you talk about those additional categories, why did you include those this time around?
I guess it was just a learning process. You know, we'd never put awards together before for the first time that we did it, and we just thought we'd do it, as I said, just to broaden things a little bit. We've got best UK indie now, which we didn't have, and best US indie. And I think we've got best. I can't remember best editors. There's one other new category that we've included, just as I said, just to broaden things a little bit.
Sure. So, I mean, if we just go down, I mean, we've got it up on the screen at the moment, and just to let everyone know about this as well. This was myself. This was a couple of other people, as well as Joel. We chose our particular picks for 2020. 2019. Our thoughts of the brightest and the best in the industry, certainly from our own reading and from our own perspective. So it was myself, Ollie McNamee. I'm trying to remember the name of the third.
Tim Cundall from Mass Movement.
Help me out,
and yourself. So there's 4 of us. And because we have different tastes, I think it was quite good, because that meant that it would be quite a broad range of different creators and different titles, because we all read different things and we like different things. And I think that's one of its strengths, I'd like to think, because we do cover different subjects and different creators and, you know, different publishers. And I think it's, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, you can't please everyone and you can't cover everything, but I'd like to think that we've got a good spread of people here and a good spread of titles.
Sure. Just to finish that up as well. So we put all of our suggestions in. Joel whittled those down and collated all of our submissions, and we put that together. The lineup is incredibly strong across the board. And the great thing about this is it's an open voting system, which means if you have a love for comics, yeah, you could just jump in. Let's have a quick go down some of the categories. Best writer, Grant Morrison, Ramby, Kieran Gillen, Kelly Thompson, and Al Ewing. Best artist, you got Joel Jones, Liam Sharp, Marco Cicchetto, Stephanie Harns, and Semper Green. Best cover artist, David Mack, Alex Ross, Liam Sharp, Jenny Frison, and Jock. Best colorist, Tamara Bonvillain, Dave Stewart, Triana Farrell, who I'm a huge fan of. Not swaying any of the votes, but I am a fan of hers. Aston Vittorio, Laura Aldred, and best letterer, which the fact that we have a colorist and a letterer category, I'm very I'm very passionate about, because
I think it was
they need to be represented.
Yes, of course.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely.
Adieta Bidkar, Tom Orszowski, Travis Lanham, Jim Campbell, Clem Robbins. Best new series, Conan the Barbarian, Hellblazer, Champions, Dying is Easy, and The Plot. Best publisher, IDW, Dark Horse Comics, Boom, Ahoy Comics, and TKO Presents, which I think shows a real strength for the new publishing methods and the new titles out there as well.
Exactly.
It's not just the big boys that are involved in that one. Best new talent, George Fornes, Michael Marisi, JP Anyonen, Jacob Phillips, and Zoe Thorogood. Best original graphic novel, Hilda the Mountain King, Bad Weekend, Snow Glass Apples, Our Encounters with Evil, and Liverstrasse. And best collection, Judge Dredd, Small House, Bill Sienkiewicz, Revolution, Volume 1, The Green Lantern, These College Shores, and Little Bird. And then you have these two, or certainly, was Best Editor in last year's category? This is a new one, isn't it?
I think that was a new addition. That's one of the new categories we've included.
Sure. Karen Berger, Brady Webb, Shelley Bond, Chris Ryle, and Mark Doyle. Some legends in the industry in that one. Best comics related website, panel by panel, Newsrama, Down the Tubes, Comic Scene UK, and Broken Frontier. And this is another one of the new ones as well. This is another one of the new ones. Best Small Press, which is UK, Self-Made Hero, Time Bomb, Accent UK, Unbound and BHP Publishing, and Best Small Press US, TKO, Dynamite, Drawn and Quarterly, Humanoids, and Vault Comics, and Roll of Honor, which for me is one of the big things of the whole lineup. This is, I mean, it's something I'm going to be bringing up a little bit later, because we've had the SDCC and the Eisners announce their nominations for their big bash for later on in the year, to choose these names, and
yes,
eventually they all deserve the actual the title of being included on the Roll of Honor. How on earth are people supposed to
it's going to be very
select?
hard. I mean, I will give people a clue and say that one of the people on that Roll of Honor will be a guest announced on Tuesday at the show. So they'll find out in 2 days. But it was one of the people on that list is coming in May.
Sure.
And if they win, they can pick up.
Into the Blue Mister is asking a very important question,
Yes,
which
of course.
do have Adam Hughes attending, but not included him in the best cover artist category.
Yes. Yes, no, you're right. I actually thought he was in there. That is an oversight.
Well, at the end of the day, we all put our nominations in.
We did. We tried to make it as fair. I mean, you're right. It is, but we tried to make it as fair as possible, which is another reason why none of our 4 websites or magazines are included in the appropriate category, because we thought that would have looked a bit fishy if we'd won, to be honest. So that's why Convention Collective, Mass Movement, Comic Con, and Tripwire are not included in the best website magazine, because it just would have looked too dodgy, to be honest. We wanted it to be an open awards that looks, like it's chosen fairly, and we have a good range of people, and the people that win, they deserve to win, whoever wins. And it's still early days, still got months to go. It doesn't close till the end of April, so people have got 2 more months left to vote. But it's interesting. I looked today at the current results, and it is very interesting. I won't say anything, but it's a few dark horses I think may surprise people.
Sure. I think I also, because I put the form together, I have seen behind the scenes as well. And I think the thing that's really struck me is the fact that the voting is very much on pretty much most of the categories, very split. It's very strong. It's very close on a couple of the reigns. It's something that represents how strong the categories are. So I think that's it represents how big the names are and how strong the actual categories are. So that's all very well and cool. When we have talked about guests, and you said that there's another guest that's going to be announced this week, how close would you say are you to actually nailing down the guest list that we'll see in Portsmouth in May? How many more names have you got kind of to come down the pipe?
There aren't many to announce. I think there's another 3 or 4 left to announce between now and the next 3 months. So, but I mean, there's 2 or 3 reasonably big names to come, but people know most of the guests that will be at the show at this point. Basically.
Cool. Excellent stuff. Yeah. And I think, I mean, we can certainly talk about the things that you've learned over the years of putting this con on, having that first initial rush of actually putting a show on, feeling you can do it, but what it will actually entail, and what you've learned now. What would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned between that first Portsmouth Comic Con, that first initial invitation to take part in it, and to where you are now? What would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned about putting on a Comic Con?
I think you have to think a little laterally in terms of getting guests in, and once if you get a good guest in, as long as you tell people who they are, and as long as you put them into context and say, this person, you don't know their work, but you've seen the TV show, you've seen the film that it's based on, and I think that's key. Kind of thinking a bit laterally, trying to get guests in that other shows sometimes don't have, and they've not been here in a long time, and trying to think a little bit differently, trying to think outside the box in terms of getting people in. I think that's one of the main things that we've tried to do over the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years now. And I think that's important for a show, because there are so many shows now. And, I guess there is a little bit of competition, but we're a different part of the country, a different time of the year to, places like Thought Bubble. They do a phenomenal job. They've been around, for 15 years, and they do a great job. But, we're in a different place in the country, a different time of the year. So as I say, so it's trying to complement, I guess, other people's shows and think, what can we bring to it, which is a little different.
Sure. And last but not least, I think the question is, what do you feel moving forward is something that you can do to grow Portsmouth Comic Con or grow what your own efforts are? I mean, what would you say is something that you'd like to attain to when it comes to putting on a show?
Well, I guess we just like to keep the caliber of guests, the caliber of American guests, and try and still offer people a range. So there is something for most people coming to a comic show, to offer people a variety of different guests that come from different backgrounds, that work in different fields, that work on different kinds of titles, that offer people a range. So it's not just a superhero comic show, or it's not just an indie comic show. I'd like it to be quite varied. And I think that's one thing that's important for a comic show to reflect that, because the industry is varied. It's not just about superheroes. It's not just about indie comics. It's an interesting. It's about a bit of everything, I like to think. And there are people that like certain things. They don't read other things. But I want something that can appeal to a wide range of an audience, to be honest. And I want to continue to do that. Working in shows in the future.
Sure. I mean, what's the thing? Where do you kind of find yourself heading whenever you go into your own show? Where's the first port of call, would you say, you go to?
Well, I mean, I guess if it's a show that I'm putting on or one that I'm attending.
No, one that you're putting on.
Well, I guess I like to check out Artist Alley, mainly because I know a lot of the people at Artist Alley, so it's quite nice just to go and say hello to them, make sure that they're happy with the way things are set up, and just catch up with them. But also have a wander around and try and catch panels. It's very hard, if you put it, yourself. If you're hosting panels, you very rarely get to see other panels because you're really busy, because we have a tripwire table at Portsmouth, and actually we've got two very cool. We have two exclusive prints that we're selling at the tripwire table this year. One from Adam Hughes, which is a Hellboy piece, and one by the guest who I haven't mentioned. But it's a very cool piece. You've seen it. I think I sent it to you. I think I can't remember if I did, but maybe not yet. I will send it to you later. But it's really nice, and it's very cool. I mean, the other thing about the tripwire table is we're going to have copies of the magazine. I'm not sure if that's a good segue or not, but we're going to have copies, hopefully, of the Tripwire 2020 Spring Special available at Portsmouth on the 2nd and 3rd of May.
Yeah, well, we will do that segue in a second, because what I'll do is before we get into that, we'll just wrap up what we're talking about Portsmouth Comic Con, because, like I say, you've got the Tripwire Awards, which are up and running, and you can find that form on tripwire.com.
No, magazine.co.uk.
Yeah, you can find that form. I'm going to be putting that up on my website as well this week, because I wanted to try and keep as many people as possible to vote for it, obviously. Absolutely. So if you are somebody who loves comics, go and vote for the categories, and do put your flag against the wall, because it really does represent some amazing talent in the industry in 2019, 2020. And also, you do have Portsmouth Comic Con as well. Best place for people to find out more about that. So you've got the website, which is portsmouthcomiccon.com, or also tripwiremagazine.co.uk. There'll be information on that as well. Cool. And let's talk very briefly about that, because like I say, I do want to try and get Joel on the show in a couple weeks' time, but we've got him on today, and he's got some things to talk about in terms of what's next for Tripwire. Go for it. Yeah.
Well, basically, we haven't published a print issue since 2011. We did our anniversary book in 2013, but we thought it was time to go back into print. So from February, we'll be launching a Kickstarter to bring the magazine back. It's going to be a 144-page, full-color, glossy magazine. It's going to be a one-shot initially, but if it works out, then hopefully we'll be doing it as a quarterly. It's going to have a Flash 80th anniversary cover by a friend of ours, David Michael Beck, who's a very talented artist. And we've also got things like a Neil Gaiman feature in there, exclusive interviews with Ryan V, Kieran Gillen, Louise Simonson. There's a Prisoner photo feature because I got to go to Port Merion last year, so there's some pictures. It's going to be packed full of an incredible amount of different stuff. It's going to be a strip section. So we've got strips from Roger Langridge. We've got the Sherlock Holmes strip, which I'm writing, the Sherlock Holmes, the Empire Builders. We've got a lot of stuff in there. We're currently finalising at the moment, but the Kickstarter will be live in February, and the magazine will be out in time for Portsmouth, and it's going to go into previews as well for May shipping. So we're very excited, and if it works out, then hopefully we'll get to do a print quarterly, which is also very exciting as well.
That's cool, because I mean, I know that having a physical magazine and a physical print of Tripwire, I know it's something that's very close and dear to your heart. I mean, I know the online edition really is something that's grown from strength to strength, but to actually have something,
yes,
it's something that's kind of in your blood, that print and ink thing. Absolutely. So that's a Kickstarter that's going to be launching. Do you have a date for when that's going to go live?
Not an exact date, but hopefully around about the first week of February, people will be able to check back closer to then, and then we'll have the launch video, and there'll be all the perks and the goals, and they'll just be all the information will be up. Hopefully around about the first week of February.
Excellent stuff.
And people will be, be able to see that on all of our various social media feeds on Twitter and Facebook. They will be, they'll certainly get to know about it once we're live.
Well, we'll do our best to share it as much as we can on my efforts as well, because yeah, to have a physical copy of Tripwire, it'd be good to have that back on the shelves, because it was something that I read getting into comics, and it was part of the landscape, and it's always good to.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's going to be very cool to look back. I'm very excited to do it again.
Yeah, excellent stuff. But listen, Joel, thank you very much indeed for coming on.
It's always my pleasure, Landers. Always a pleasure.
Portsmouth is a very important show for myself, because it does allow me to meet some very cool and interesting people. But I think it's a very important show for the comics landscape. Like I say, there's great to have some really good, strong shows, which the focus is on comics and comic creators, and that's what Portsmouth does. While it does look at all these other disciplines, the main thing and the main headliners that it brings in, it's all about comics and good, strong comics talent, and that's what Portsmouth Comic Con for me is just one of the benefits for. So it's great to have that show in the landscape.
Yes,
excellent stuff. Joel, thank you very much indeed for coming on, and hopefully we'll see you online soon.
Indeed.
Where can people find
you? Well, tripwiremagazine.co.uk, and I'm also on Twitter as Joel Meadows 1. Very imaginative, I know. And also there is a Tripwire Mag Facebook group that if people just search for it, they'll find it. So people are welcome to come and track us down and chat to us and check out what else we've got coming up, and it'd be great to see them at any of these online places.
Excellent stuff. Joel, thank you very much indeed for coming on, sir.
Brilliant. Thanks, Len. Thanks very much. Take care.
Take care. And there you go. Joel Meadows. Like I say, PortsmouthComicCon.com. Do check it out, and also do head to tripwiremagazine.com as well, because it is important that as many votes as we can get on the Tripwire Awards, because it really, like I say, represents some real talent in the industry. One of the elements in there as well is Best New Talent. And I think we skipped over that somehow. I'm gonna have to check that. But the Best New Talent is something that I'm going to be sponsoring as part of the Convention Collective, because I feel the next generation of creators, it's all about looking to the future and looking to the new readership, getting new talent involved, and encouraging that the best we can. That's pretty much what I'm going to do with supporting with that particular award. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm also going to do my best to try and live stream that as well. So on the 3rd of May, certainly around 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, keep your eye on our social media, because we'll do our best to stream that to all of our platforms as best we can. That's the Tripwire Awards for 2020. So there we go. Right. Thank you very much indeed for Joel for coming on. It's now time to quickly get into one or two news bits and pieces of the last couple of days, because we have a couple of big things that have been announced, especially when it comes to WonderCon, which got announced this week. A whole bunch of bits and pieces, including the guest list for WonderCon. The guest list was finally completed, which means we do have now a complete roster of the guests that are going to be coming to the show. So only 5 guest announcements for WonderCon in 2020, which is a bit strange, but still very strong indeed from the likes of Jason Aaron, Jem Bartel, Brian Michael Bendis, Donny Cates, Michael Cho, Mitch Gerards, Adam Hughes, Nalo Hopkinson, David A. Robertson, Irene Coe, and then joining them, you do have that massive roster there of Sergio Aragons. Let's have a look at the list of this here. Yeah, Jamal Campbell, Mark Evanier, Stephanie Hans, Jim Lee, and David Mark Webber. Which, I mean, there's a couple in there which are regular mainstays of the WonderCon lineup. And to be fair, there's nothing really that kind of jumps out in terms of any names that hasn't been to WonderCon before. But certainly Scotty Young hasn't been to WonderCon for a while, so it's good to have him represented. And also Christina Steen Stewart as well, which is a new face on the block. Good to have her represented at the show. But the thing that people really did, I mean, we were getting this announcement about special guests, and then we were just wondering when on earth we were going to get something about any kind of hotels and tickets. And then the second that dropped out, got announced, we finally got ourselves the announcement for what's actually happening with the hotels. So we have ourselves the bits and pieces when it comes to the hotels and also the tickets. Tickets are available as we speak, and you can find them on comic-con.org/WCA. They're available now. They're up for grabs and they are available to buy. If you go to the actual site, you do get yourself the homepage. Let's bring that up. Let's give you an idea of what you can see. So yeah, we have ourselves the homepage, and like I say, the buying process is all done through your registration tab on your member ID, which means it's a case of going to your member ID. Let's have a quick look as well. We have ourselves the prices as well for the badges for this year. Friday and Saturday badges are £40, with Sunday badge at $24. Junior, half price for all of these. Likewise for the US military and senior, which is, for the strength of the lineup for WonderCon, it's not too shabby at all. It's very impressive, the actual lineup for what we actually have for WonderCon this year. So that is the prices for this year. At which point we have ourselves the way to buy the badges. It is a case of going to your member ID, logging in, and if you go to the registration tab and scroll down, you do have yourself your attendee registration for WonderCon as part of the actual the purchasing method for San Diego Comic-Con and also WonderCon. WonderCon at the bottom half of the page. Clicking on Purchase Badge, you are taken to a page where you're allowed to select the badges that you're available, or which are you're actually wanting to purchase. Select individually and do all three if you want to get all the entire weekend. Which will then you click on the agree to terms and conditions, and that brings up a button to allow you to purchase and add to your actual profile. It's pretty straightforward. It's incredibly easy to use. Do remember, if we just bring that back up to that first page, because it does tell you as well. Let's see if I can just bring that up. Hang on a second. Where is it? There it is. Because there is details about the actual show, that especially when it comes to the cancellation of your badges. At the end of the day, it's a very short timetable for this year. Considering that, it does actually say that the deadline to request a badge refund is February the 25th, which is what, just 3.5-4 weeks. So in other words, if you bought that window between buying a badge and actually getting the refund if needs be, it's a very short window, is this particular show. It's Friday the 10th, Sunday the 12th of April. It's all kind of happening very, very quickly indeed. So if you are wanting to attend the show, do keep that in mind. Let's have a look at this. Picard showed us that WonderCon is being held in the future. Yes, if you've seen Picard, you know that there's a large chunk of it that has been shot at the Anaheim Convention Center. It's very, very obvious that that is the case. But yeah, like I say, the badges are available now. If you do want to get yourself those badges bought, get yourself over to comic-con.org/WCA. Dan Berry is reminding us about some news when it comes to the Annie Awards. Yes, that all happened last night. If you do follow the Twitter feed for the Convention Collective, which is the Convention Collective minus the I, because there's no I in collective. If you do have a check out that feed, it does have some amazing talent from the Annie Awards. This is, of course, the industry award for animation. So you have a whole bunch of talent, not only from the fields of computer animation, stop motion, big screen, small screen, some real talent involved. And Dan was there, Alana was there, taking pictures and keeping an eye on who was walking in on the red carpet. It is quite a heck of a show, so do check that out. But that is available on the Convention Collective. I believe Dan is going to be putting a gallery together over the course of the next couple of days, and we should actually have a post up soon of the winners of last night's show. So that is the Annie Awards that was last night. Andrew English is announcing a competition which is being put up for MCM Comic Con, a competition for free hotel. You do have to buy a weekend ticket. Is that a competition or a comp? I don't think that's. I think it's a competition for a free hotel, but you do have to buy a weekend ticket. That's interesting to talk about what MCM are doing in terms of bringing their guests involved and getting everybody to attend that show. I think it kind of speaks volumes as well about how strong or not strong MCM was for 2019 and what they're doing their best to kind of get that encouragement back onto the audience. It's a very strong lineup for the spring event. I think it's growing on a daily basis. They are still adding people to attend the MCM show, but it's a very impressive lineup so far. And I do expect the spring show to do very nicely and be a very big draw. Another show as well, which I expect to be a very big draw for as well, is Wales Comic Con, which is doing its best to announce some very big names and is also bringing a little bit of a mini Firefly reunion, which is going to be happening in the show in May. This is going to be, I think I might just have to try and dial it up. Let's see if I'm going to find it for you. Because the Wales Comic Con have been growing on a regular basis over the course of the last couple of years, and certainly with the new venue which they brought, taking over Telford, it really is giving them the ability to bring more diverse and exciting guests to the show. Let's see if we can just bring that up, because we do have ourselves let me just stop that one and bring in this other tab. Wales Comic Con, here we go. So yes, I mean, John Barrowman is somebody who's a mainstay of comic conventions, but it's great to have him available at a show. Let's get that a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. Okay, a couple of names on there as well, which it's great to have represented. Deborah Ann Wall, which I think is somebody who really could do with capitalizing on the Daredevil success. It's getting a little bit too far away from Daredevil now. I think she could do with getting a little bit more of a profile, some more bodies involved. But let's see if we can get some more projects, and she'll be hopefully talking about those when she meets and greets with fans. James Masters, always good to have him at a show. Likewise with Patrick Warburton and Mark Shepard, who is just a force of nature in his own. But those are your four, and certainly the ones that people are going to be most interested in: Summer Glau, Jewel State, Sean Maher, and of course Alan Tudyk from the Firefly lineup and Serenity as well. So yeah, they're going to be on stage, and that's going to be one hell of a panel. But there's also some names in there which I'm very, very impressed by. Thora Birch, you don't usually see at conventions, so it's good to have her on a lineup. Likewise with Mitch Pileggi as well, good to have him represented. Bern Gorman is somebody that I haven't seen at many conventions. He's a good guy and a very talented actor, so hopefully, it's interesting that it's listing him as Torchwood and the Expanse when he was, of course, in the Dark Knight Rises as well. So it would be interesting to see that he's not represented. Eve Miles, Kai Owen, Neko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd obviously going to be joining Barrowman as part of the Torchwood panel, no doubt. So that was going to be quite an exhilarating room. Holly Marie Coombs is somebody I'm really excited to see on the lineup. I'm curious to see if anyone's actually going to talk to her about her life post Charmed, considering that she has been very strong and vocal when it comes to a number of causes in recent years. So hopefully that'll come up, because she's somebody who has a very interesting perspective on those things. Dennis Lawson, of course, will have something to say about Star Wars, both past and present. And of course, you have a whole bunch of others as well in there, including Craig Parker and Sylvester McCoy representing from the Lord of the Rings. Very strong lineup indeed, and very impressive. And yeah, it's great to see that Wales Comic Con is doing their best to get more and more bodies involved. That's going to be 25th and 26th of April at Telford, once again, not in Wales, but that's the way it works. And I think just to wrap things up when it comes to guests that have been announced at shows this week, I think another a show that is very much worth pointing some faces at is MCon Nottingham. Now, MCon, I understand, are doing their best to continue to add to their guest list, but we'll see how that goes in terms of adding a guest. If anything, because I know for a fact they want to try and get as many people to check out this particular guest, which is, of course, Mr. Jason Mewes, who is going to be attending. Whether that's going to have a surprise guest, who knows? We can only cross our fingers that he may be bringing some friends with him, but who knows? I know that MCon are doing their absolute damnedest to get as many bodies when it comes to some great lineup of guests for their show. I think the other one as well, which I actually think could have, in fact, there's two there, which I think could have been a little bit further up the guest list. John Ross Bowie, who is obviously from the likes of Speechless and Big Bang Theory. I'm a big fan of his. I was lucky enough to be stood next to Lee Wallace of MCon while he was at Wales Comic Con last year, and John Ross Bowie was there. They were talking about his appearance at Wales, and John Ross Bowie spoke to us, and we had a bit of a conversation. And all I could think is that he is one of the fastest minds I've ever seen up close and personal. He's very quick. He's very responsive. He's listening to everything that's being said, and he will just jump on an instant part of a conversation. Very, very fast, very, very quick. I would love to see any panel footage of that particular man if he's being interviewed at MCon, because that is a very, very interesting and very funny guy indeed. That's John Ross Bowie attending MCon. Likewise, Saul Robinick, somebody I've met, but I can imagine is a very fascinating guy, big history when it comes to his acting career. That's what I'm curious to see what's going on. Saul Robinick appearing at the show. Tommy Flanagan, of course, from Sons of Anarchy and Gotham, very exciting actor. I think a number of these could be bumped a little bit further up the appeal of the list alongside Jason Mewes, but they have been decided that your four top people at the top of the show: LaMonica Garrett, Jason Mewes, Blake Harrison from the In-Betweeners, and also Tosin Cole from Doctor Who. So that is MCon, a show that I would heartily recommend checking out, and that is going to be taking place 2nd and 3rd of May 2020. That's not that far away. So there we go. Those are the bits and pieces that I wanted to very quickly cover for today. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you very much indeed to Joel for coming on and talking about Portsmouth Comic Con. Once again, do check out tripwiredmagazine.co.uk for the full Tripwire Awards form, which you can enter. If you are a fan of comics, jump on that page and vote for your best. It's going to be a very close call, I think, for a bunch of things. but well worth checking out. So please do head to that particular website to put your vote in and get your voices out there about what is actually happening when it comes to the best and brightest in comics. So there we go. Let's have a look at a couple of the comments. Let's see if there's anything that's been said. Michael P. Dan, if I'm in San Diego next year, can I go as your +1? I think that's about the Annie Awards. Listen, what you have to do is make sure that you are dressed as sharp and as snappy as Dan Berry was last night. If you want to go to our Twitter and just see what the boys dressed up, he spruced himself up, looking good. So looking forward to seeing what Dan's posts are going to be about the Annie Awards, especially when it comes to the runners and riders and all the winners from last night. Hopefully we'll get that post up on the show, on the website, on the conventioncollective.com very shortly indeed. Andrew English, he's not going to be, can't be at MCon Portsmouth, sorry, MCon, because indeed, it's the reason why I'm not going to be able to go to MCon this year, because it is run the same weekend as Portsmouth Comic Con. But this is where divide and conquer comes involved. While I'm going to be heading to Portsmouth, the missus is heading to Nottingham. Caroline is not only being invited along as a guest, she's kind of invited along as staff. I think she's going to be actually involved in putting together and organizing the autograph area. So she's going to be part of the talent coordination team for MCon. So if you are heading to Nottingham, you're going to be able to see the missus, and you're going to see her smiling and happy because she's not running around and looking after me and picking up my crap. She's there on her own, and she's going to be having an absolute blast. She has turned around and says that she would love to spend a little bit of time with Jason Mewes. She hasn't smoked for a while, not since she was a young wee nipper, but she's willing to pick up her habit again just to spend some time with Jason Mewes, which I can kind of understand. So that'd be rather cool. And like I said, there's some great talent there. So she's going to have a great time. But I'm going to be at Portsmouth. She's going to be in Nottingham. Divide and conquer. So yeah, it's the same weekend. Unfortunately, you do have to pick and choose. It's either the pop culture stuff or the comics, and I think that's not the worst decision or the worst way to make a decision in the world. You pick and choose your battles. So there you go. That's the way it works. So there you go. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Like I say, I'm going to try my best now to jump on a chat just for the Patreon supporters. So if you are somebody who has put a contribution forward, I really do appreciate all the effort and all the support that you give us. And I want to try and give something a little bit back. So I'll do myself best to get that set up as quick as I possibly can. And we'll get that live once we've come off the stream today. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Back next week, we'll have ourselves a special guest and also a bit of a report and a review. Hopefully, we'll get some video footage up on the screen as well, because I'll be heading to True Believers. This is a show I've never been to before. I've been encouraged to go on a numerous occasion, and I do want to see what this show is about. Very much a show that supports independent comic creators here in the UK. So some amazing talent that's going to be there that you may not know of, but you certainly should have on your radar, because this is a great collective of independent creative comic creators, artists and writers that are going to be representing at True Believers. That's where I'm going to be next Saturday. So I'll try and take as much video footage as I can, try and edit it as best as I can throughout the course of the day, and then hopefully we'll bring you a good 5-10 minutes worth of video footage, and we'll put that onto the Hangout next week. Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And from me to you, we'll see you next Sunday on another Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. If you're a Patreon supporter, bear with us. That notification will be coming out very shortly indeed. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.